Today's episode is brought to you by Imagine What, World Building in a Box. Imagine What is a monthly subscription box for creatives of all ages, packed with writing prompts, world building activities, and exclusive tips to help you turn your ideas into something extraordinary. Head over to ImagineWhatBox.com to subscribe today. And because you're a listener of Unreel Attractions, use the code UNREEL, that's UNREEL, at checkout for a special discount on your first box. Imagine what worlds you can create. Welcome to Unreel Attractions, the podcast where the magic of theme parks meets the imagination of Hollywood. I'm your host, Kevin Lively, and in every episode I join other theme park pros to dive headfirst into the fictional worlds of film and TV to explore the theme parks and attractions that exist only on the screen. From the impossible to the downright bizarre, we uncover what makes these unreal places so unreal. Today, we're headed to the backwoods of nostalgia and whimsy to take a look at one of the most charmingly chaotic roadside attractions ever captured on film. That's Lester's Possum Park from a Goofy movie released in 1995. And joining me on this road trip is a musical sensation in his own right. I knew him when he was just a wee little intern at Walt Disney Imagineering, but now he's taking TikTok by storm with catchy musical melodies. He's also like the third lesser-known Sherman brother. Fun fact. He is the younger, long-lost Sherman brother. It goes Richard, Robert, and Noah. That is Noah Sunday-Lefkowitz. How do I say that? I always butcher.
You were so close.
Lefkowitz.
There you go.
There we go. Noah Sunday-Lefkowitz. Yeah, we'll keep that in. I don't need to edit that out. How you doing, Noah?
I'm thrilled to be here. I'm happy to talk to you and ready to discuss some hoot and hollering.
So let's set up who you are. Tell us about your experience in the theme park world, industry, all that stuff. What is the crash course of Noah 101?
Yeah. Well, I, like everybody else in this industry, grew up going to Walt Disney World from a nowhere town in Pennsylvania. I was fascinated with Imagineering from a very young age. I remember learning about the Haunted Mansion special effects when I was 10, and that was the light bulb going off of, oh, people create these ghosts, people create these environments. And I started recreating effects. Eventually, I did the Disney College program in 2017, worked in Magic Kingdom. I worked parade audience control for what it's worth.
That's always fun.
Yeah, I closed Wishes and opened Happily Ever After.
So you're really good with a baton.
Oh, you should see me with the baton. It really is a sight to behold. I had a grand old time as a 21-year-old theater student working in Walt Disney World. And the following year, I did the Imagineering Imaginations competition, where Imagineers put out a prompt for college students to create a theoretical immersive experience. My team and I were in the top 6, and long story short, I ended up getting an internship opportunity out of that and moved to California to work as a producer intern for the Disneyland portfolio in summer of 2018, and did that for a year, got hired into live entertainment development, worked on Avengers Campus, and then moved over to the casting department and worked on any pre-recorded voice you hear in the Disney park. We were a mighty department of 2 people and got to work on so many incredible projects. And then I, like many other people, suddenly disappeared around COVID with the mighty layoffs. And
that's when Thanos popped in with the pandemic.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, this little thing happened that affected every single industry. And so I found myself at home wanting to now pursue my other passion, which was music and theater. I have a music and theater degree. I've been performing all of my life, and yet we were all stuck at home. And so I started writing medleys of obscure Disney music that I wanted to see showcased online, but seemed to not ever be present. You know, there were many like villains medleys or hero medleys or sidekick medleys, but no, I wanted the like obscure Tomorrowland in the 90s medleys. And so I really sort of took my passion / brain rot, whatever you want to call it, and coupled it with my skills and started making these medleys in my room during the pandemic and started putting them online. I guess, I mean, let me be clear, I don't know why they work, but I assume that it's because they're so specific and because it has such a game show like quality and such a rapid fire. You remember this, you remember this, you remember this. It's almost like a competition. People started to take note of them. And so now it'll be 3 years that I've been doing this Disney centric content creation, music stuff online. And I always treated it as like a living, breathing resume. It's like examples of what I do rather than like, I'm a content creator. It's like, no, these are my skills. And since I've been putting that stuff online, I've had the great pleasure of now working back in themed entertainment, both at Imagineering and otherwise, doing music, arranging and writing music and recording voiceovers. So it really has all come full circle thanks to this weird social media world we live in.
That's awesome. And I think when you say obscure, like you go really obscure. You brought to light the fact that Big Thunder has a theme song.
Oh
Like,
yeah. I listen, if I could use my platform to call to light the weird and very, very oddly specific of the Thunder Mountain song or the old Welcome to Toontown song that I believe was only played at the opening ceremonies, things like that.
yeah, that's a
That
weird one.
gets me going, you know? And let me be clear, what a perfect topic to talk. You want to talk about obscure random music from a theme park. Lester's Possum Park is like the perfect fictionalized version of that.
Yes, exactly. That's why you were the perfect person to bring on to talk about this. Do you remember, like, what's your background with the Goofy movie?
Actually believe that I saw an extremely goofy movie before I saw a goofy movie.
Whoa.
And I can attribute that to my cousins loaned us a VHS and the case was a goofy movie. But they put the VHS for an extremely goofy movie in the goofy movie case. So I had just gotten duped and I had the
Oh my.
wrong movie for a long time. So I don't remember the first time I actually saw a goofy movie. I remember it being just like shockingly high quality storytelling. And the one thing I do remember is, like I mentioned, I've been doing music my whole life. I started in violin when I was 3, choir when I was 3. That made way for guitar, made way for piano. And I had a very new age piano teacher. He would just sort of ask me, "What do you want to learn?" There were no scales involved.
Uh,
It was just let's learn songs and break them down. And I remember, I was like 12 when I started, and I said, I want to learn Billy Joel and Disney music. And the first song that I learned with that teacher was On the Open Road from a Goofy movie. And I
wow.
remember because, again, even back then, I was interested in those more obscure tracks. There was no sheet music for it. And so what we did was we would watch the movie and listen to it and dictate the music. And so
Holy
my
smokes.
first real memory of the movie is loving that song so much that we learned it by rote. And that's sort of
That's insane.
my main memory with the film, if like thinking about it as in my childhood.
So, okay, before we dive in, I want to point out something because I rewatched this on Disney Plus, and they did something weird with the cover art. So they took the original poster from like '95. It has like Goofy and Max doing a dance pose. They
Yeah.
added Roxanne, but then somebody looked at it and said, I really can't see Max's eyes because he's wearing the Powerline outfit. Can we get rid of that? And someone's like, yeah, we can get rid of the glasses over Max's eyes. So they got rid of the lenses, but they kept the top of the glasses. So he has like a whole like Pat Benatar, let's get physical thing going on when you
That's
look at the
really
cover art.
funny. Oh,
There was another thing too, and I've already posted it on the Instagram. There's a background character who I've never noticed until I was pausing this movie so much. It's this little girl that looks like the Marlon Brando. It is, it
as
is,
one does.
as one does. So yeah, so the Lester's Possum Park pops up at the 30-minute mark of this 82-minute movie, and this before we started recording, we're like normally 82 minutes, anything below 90 minutes in a movie is like it's a red flag of this is going to be horrible. This is going to be the worst thing you've ever seen. But no, as you said, this movie is tight. Like this is a very well constructed 82-minute film, and it's tragedy. It's not longer. And so, yeah, let's dive into it. Like the first thing we see of Lester's Possum Park is this beautiful wooden carved upside down possum sign hanging off the road. And
Yes.
the graphic design of Lester's Possum Park, way too good for a roadside attraction. Like it is.
Somebody did not get paid enough. Some kid right out of graphic design school was given $10 and needed to prove themselves and did the best looking thing probably in the park.
It's simplistic, it's retro, it's works on any piece of merchandise you can imagine.
Well, what I think, and this is already getting into the lore, but I think, you said retro, and my first thought is like, well, when did Lester's Possum Park open?
Okay, that's a big part of this because Goofy was going when he was a kid. Because I don't
Right.
think, yeah. So he's been there before, and to which I want to know is what we see today when we watch a Goofy movie is essentially a Country Bears jamboree show,
Absolutely.
but the characters have like 2x4 arms and nails as fingers, and they're falling apart. Was Lester's amazing back in the day when Goofy was a kid, or was it just as bad of production value like back then, and it's just been surviving at that low level
I
quality over the
really
years?
like to think that it hasn't gotten worse. That's
Oh,
just, I like to think that it was never better than this. I like to think that they had whoever also, oh, sorry, this is a tangent. I was gonna say Lester when he created the park. Lester's not the creator. Lester's the mascot. It's like if Disneyland was called Mickey Mouse Park.
maybe, but we're in the world of talking animals. So,
That's
but
true.
we do see normal possums during the meet and greet. So I'm going to assume this
That's
is more like a Mickey Mouse thing. So I think Lester is this.
so whoever the creator of it, I like to think that he had a grand idea similar to Walt Disney at Disneyland, but unlike Walt Disney, had no access to resources. So, sort of like Enchanted Forest in Oregon, they
Mhm.
just, the family built it themselves. And I was actually thinking about Enchanted Forest a lot because I went to Enchanted Forest once and it's all made by the Tofty family, and it's incredible, but also incredibly creepy. Like it's just a little off. And it's amazing to see the feat of this family building something equivalent to Disneyland in some ways, and then just completely opposite in the other ways. And I feel like Lester's Possum Park is that. Like somebody saw Disneyland and said, like, I can do that. And they got their sons, who are in middle school to be just like, here's a possum animatronic, and it's like that works, great, keep it. That's my head canon. I don't know. Do you think there was a glorious heyday?
Well, or was Lester a was he a pop culture icon in the South where this park was back in the
Mm.
day? Was there like a Lester show that just nobody remembers anymore, like a public access Howdy Doody
Oh,
situation?
that's funny. That Yeah, he
So that
had he had his like moment in the sun, and this
and
is still like, hey, remember that? No,
yep, it's still
somebody in
turning.
your
Yeah,
family knows.
I mean, and two, like I have this later in my notes too, but like to the credit, the only person not having fun at Lester's Possum Park is Max.
That's You're so right though. Like
Yeah,
clearly they're doing something right. Like
there's something. Yeah.
it survived for so many years, and what I imagine the same way on the same thing that many Route 66 roadside attractions survived on, which is just pure novelty. Just it is
Hmm.
so weird that it works.
Yeah, it's
And
alien beef jerky out in the South.
right. And my big question when thinking of Lester's Possum Park is there more to Lester's Possum Park than what we see?
Okay, so this is where my pausing was going. Now, in the
Okay,
background, when Goofy's getting his picture taken, we see something that could be one of two things. And one of two things because it's a background painting, so there's no animation going. But
of
it
course.
looks like essentially a Dumbo style ride with possums replacing
Ha,
elephants.
ha, ha, ha.
It's
Great.
it's either a Dumbo style ride or it is a very elaborate giant umbrella you have a picnic under.
Hmm,
There's no reason why you would have giant sculpted dimensional possums doing that. So that's why
right.
I'm led to believe this is a spinner ride. So like you would see at a Dino Land USA, right? May it rest in peace.
Oh,
But that little
Dino Land is
roadside,
Land's a really good equivalent, actually, now that
yeah.
you say.
So
And
there
of
is a
course,
spinner ride.
Dino Land is also a reference to a thing. It's not the thing itself. Now that just you mentioning that is a very good equivalent.
Another like noteworthy thing that you see in the background is there is a film shop where you can buy your film and disposable cameras and stuff. But there is a Kodak canister of film on that sign. Did this actually have Kodak sponsorship at some time back in
That
the day? Were they big enough to get that?
were they good enough or was Kodak desperate enough? Depends on when in the timeline of
That's
Kodak we're thinking
well,
about.
they're like digital cameras. That's not the future. It's film, kid.
That's right.
But
And like,
yeah,
were they scrambling, or like, was Lester desperate on his last legs in like the 80s or 90s? And Kodak was also desperate on its last legs in the 80s and 90s. And as a last resort, Kodak gave them $100,000.
as far as success goes, there is a school bus parked outside Lester's Possum Park. So there's either a field trip going on or there's a family that just drives a school bus going around.
Both both worthy options, both worthy possibilities there.
Which would be an amazing field trip for any kid to go see, a show and there's like a little carnival thing.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
but it's also really dark out, isn't it? Like I think it's like kind
Yeah,
of at dusk
it's
time.
it
Yeah.
is it is they get there and it's dark out. And
Yeah.
that brings up my question is, along with how big is Lester's Possum Park, how much time do you spend at Lester's Possum Park? Because in my limited experience of roadside attractions, I always spend less time at a thing than I think I do. Like
Mhm.
Taryn and I were just in Georgia and we saw the Big Chicken, and it was like, oh, we gotta stop and see the Big Chicken, and we stopped and we saw it, and then we're like, okay,
The big chicken.
it's a big chicken, all right, and it's like, well, why did we have to stop? Could we have just driven by? Like, but if there's a bus there and they're there at dusk, have they been there all day? I'm assuming this
Is it
isn't like a 7 p.m. field trip,
no, what if this is their grad night? This is grad night at Lester's Possum Park.
which I'm gonna say right now would be a get in the middle of nowhere. That's like the
Right.
venue. That's like the venue to end all venues. Like, even in Pennsylvania growing up, there was like one venue. Let me be clear, it wasn't at the quality of Lester's Possum Park, but there was like one venue, and that venue hosted, I think I've been to like 8 bar mitzvahs there. I had my high school proms, my college prom, and my parents got married there. So it's like that's the venue of northeastern Pennsylvania. And I like to think in our head canon that Lester's is the get of this fictional Midwest town.
If we have any graphic designers listening to this show, if you could just make I had my bar mitzvah at Lester's Possum Park as a t-shirt, I'd wear
I
that
would
7 days straight.
I would buy that immediately.
Yes, that would be an instant buy. Other operational things, real quick, going back to how much time you spend, the show is one song, at least before this one where it
Well,
breaks
then,
and blows
do we
up.
assume do we assume that the movie's showing us the whole show?
I don't know. But I did find a continuity error in that one. So in the very beginning, the Lester figure pops up and he says, "This is, Buford, Beulah, and Mordecai." And Mordecai is like tripping out coming out of the little,
Yeah.
but then Lester refers to that figure as Buford, like on the next line. So I have a note for the show writer at Lester's Possum part is you need to double check the continuity of your script because you're
Kevin,
referring to characters with the
can
wrong
I
names.
tell you something?
Yeah.
I will bet my left shoulder there is no show writer. That was that guy who created Lester's Possum Park being like, I can do it. And then it's him doing all the voices. Yeah, it's this one guy's fever dream.
I love his spiel. I worked at the Opera House. We had a whole spiel for Mr. Lincoln. We had a whole spiel for Disneyland, the first 50 magical years. But here's, his his spiel to start the show is, "Here it is. That's it.
It's
All right."
so good. Here it
He
is.
has to be the owner. He has to like,
Also, correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like I've heard this somewhere, but wasn't that Pat Buttram's final role?
yes,
This like legendary cowboy actor who everybody imitates. That's
it's the guy from Back to the Future 3.
Yeah, no, that's definitely Pat Buttram because
Pat
Okay.
Buttram had that kind of like warbly thing.
and that's his legacy was cemented in the line.
Here it is.
Here it is. That's his last line.
It's actually
You know,
on his epitaph. Here it is.
in that theater, though, there's another piece of amazing Lester's graphic design, and that's the drama masks that are hanging above the proscenium. It's a happy possum and a sad possum.
And that going on in great lineage of these masks, because I think if not exactly, both Country Bears and Muppet Vision have a version of that.
Yep.
Lester lives in the great tradition of theme park pastiches on those masks.
Well, I mean, the Possum Posse Jamboree clearly is an homage to the beloved Bear Man. I know, right? And I think that's why there could be one reason why this movie resonates so much with Disney Parks fans is because you have that tribute
Can I give
to the
you a little piece of headcanon that I think would be incredible? There's no basis on reality here.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Country Bear Jamboree, in some world, Walt Disney could have gone to Lester's Possum Park and have been inspired enough to make Country Bear Jamboree.
Mark Davis. Well, okay, so we do know Mickey and Donald are alive in this Goofy verse,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And so it could be that Mickey and Donald checked out Lester's and saw Mark Davis after lunch one day, and he's working on Mineral King, and they're like, "Hey, pal, I got a great idea."
You're never going to believe what I just saw.
Don't worry, nobody will know you're stealing the idea.
Goofy's been going as a kid.
That's right.
So
yeah.
He was like, Mark, you gotta see this.
You gotta see this. I know exactly what Mineral King needs. Lester's Possum Park. There's a show called the Possum Posse Jamboree. He's like, say no more. We'll make it bear and give one a tuba.
Incredible. This is now what I will imagine. This is what I'm going to imagine from henceforth.
So we don't see any food booths, any food locations. We do see, however, litter on the ground of the theater. And so this is what I've seen that they sell at Lester's Possum Park for food. We have fries, popcorn, sandwiches. So it could be a burger or a chicken sandwich or a possum sandwich, who knows, and soft drinks. So it's
standard.
It's standard fare, but we don't see any of those booths. But yeah, you do see it all as litter in the theater. and every trash can in that park is overflowing. It's like a Panda Express in there.
Because
Every
the only
single trash.
people running it are the family, and they don't have
Yeah,
enough time.
the 3 employees. No, okay, no, we see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 employees,
Wow,
maybe
big
6.
money.
Right? It's the family. So you have Grandpa starting the show,
Yep.
Grandpa Lester, we can assume. We have the guy taking the photos, and he's also very well
Yep.
dressed. Is he the other grandpa? I don't know, but older guy. Not as he could be the son of the guy starting the show because that guy is just as old
Sure.
as dirt. And
Yeah.
then you have there is live entertainment because you have the washboard and mandolin player who start going into a
Yeah.
hoedown. And then we need to talk about the costume walk around character.
Yes.
Yeah. If you're unaware how much those costumes cost to make, it makes you wonder how did Lester acquire a fairly decent custom walk around character costume?
Well, that's the thing, is it is fairly decent. Like, it's not just a onesie. He's got like correct, like good
Mhm.
proportioned padding and like ringing, and the head is like sculpted.
Yeah,
I
well,
mean,
for part of the body, I mean, that could just be like a Pete-sized character underneath the padding.
that's true. That's true. But if
Uh,
we assume that it's a goofy sized person,
right? That's the Imagineering's still working on trying to nail out the perfections of getting a big character like that, as seen with the
yeah.
Hulk walk around plate. But Lester's apparently conquered it prior to 1995.
And you know what? I
And
will shout out. I believe Sarah Sterling, current Imagineer, did build a Lester's costume. So
oh, great!
we'll have to ask her, how did you conquer this enormous feat of
And how much
creating
did you spend on it?
this? What was the budget? Because
What was the budget?
it's pretty screen accurate. But you gotta ask, like, who, like, did they make it? Did they is there a vendor? Is there a
They went to
third
IAPA
party?
one year.
That's
They went to IAPA. They found a vendor. They couldn't afford any of the rides or the food options,
no,
but
but they
there was
went
that
all
one.
in on this sculpted character.
Oh, and there's a Lester like fortune telling machine somewhere off screen that we haven't
Oh,
seen.
yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. And also, I like to think that those are how Lester's eyes are. I like to think that that's a distinct character choice. That he as a possum just has eyes going every which way. Like, that's not a fluke. That's not a flaw in the costume. That's just screen accurate to Lester.
One employee they could stand to gain if we're giving our operational notes is they really need a character attendant because you have Max just slap the silly out of Lester, turning his head backwards, which is
That's true.
totally not cool. Rewatching it now as a parent and watching it as somebody who's worked in theme parks, you're like, much different result than watching it as a
No,
10-year-old going, ha ha.
Max should no longer be allowed in Lester's Possum Park,
He
which,
should have
by
been
the way,
banned on the spot.
would eat Goofy up on the
Oh my.
inside.
But here's the other thing though, is after Max does that, Lester wanders off and he gets tackled by a bunch of 8-year-olds and he gets dragged off screen. So this is a reoccurring problem with the character department at Lester's Possum Park where they're just beaten up like the guys who like helped train the police dogs.
They're not concerned about the safety of their performers.
Well, it probably is just the cousin.
Oh, well, in that case,
So I was also going through and looking at some of the repairs that the show has had inside that theater. So they have patches on the curtains. Curtains are expensive though, so I get
curtains
that, right?
are expensive.
Curtains are way like you think, oh, maybe a couple $100. No, 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 no. Curtains are you get the flame retardant on there. That's a lot. They have the wires are just taped up, to keep the connection going. And then I already mentioned the nail fingers and how everything just kind of blows up and because it's sitting on a screen. But other than that, that theater as a whole, condition's not bad. Like the walls are standing up, the ceiling's there, proscenium, no issues. There's working lighting, no notes. So good on Lester's for at least keeping the tech standards up.
And for what it's worth, the sound system no notes, doesn't
No
sound
notes.
like they're muffled or blown out speakers.
That's a very valid point. However, the old man is able to fix the show by doing a Fonzie and just hitting the stage.
I they
One other thing I wanted to mention, we keep going back to his Lester costume because it is a standout. He talks through the mask, which is something you just don't see anymore unless it is a
That's
articulated
true.
head. Yeah. And I say anymore because when I worked at Disneyland, one of my cast members, he was an older guy, but he was friends with Pinocchio, among
Mm-hmm.
other characters, and Mr. Smee back in the 60s. So when you watch like Walt
Oh,
standing in front of Pirates of the Caribbean and Mr. Smee and Hook walk up, he's Mr. Smee. Or he was also
wow.
like Mr. Smee in like the big photo shoot in front of the castle. But he told me a story like apparently back in the day, this is like where Mickey was like super short and like he like wore a top
Oh, yeah.
hat. Cast member there who was like he was a short little guy with a super gruff voice, and he would talk to the kids. So be like, "Hey
Hey.
kids, how you doing?" It's like Krusty the Clown's voice coming out of a Mickey. But this is like, I mean, that was back in the day. So I'm assuming that maybe Lester's that's when they visited Disneyland and got the idea for the costume characters, and they just haven't
That,
been back since to see how standards have
that's
changed.
very funny.
The photo op. Oh my gosh, best photo op ever. So
It's a great photo op.
even without Goofy wrapping his legs around the tree, just standing between two live possums hanging upside down, sign me up.
Oh
I
yeah.
am taking that picture.
So you'll have to jog my memory a little bit on these possums.
Yes,
How anthropomorphic are these possums? Are they possums?
they're possums. They're like digging through the trash in the middle of the night possums.
So are there
In a
also
Disney style.
anthropomorphic possums? Like is Lester an anthropomorphic possum and yet these are real life possums?
Well, okay, so I think this comes down to a Mickey Mouse situation, right? So Mickey does not necessarily look like your traditional mouse, but this
Sure.
would be equal to like having a Mickey Mouse meet and greet, but you're next to like a habit trail full of mice.
And who wouldn't want to do that?
That would be adorable. Now, like maybe hold Mickey in your hand. But but also the possums are trained to smile. They say everyone say sassafras, and
Oh,
they
that's
smile.
right. And let me be clear, that ain't cheap either.
No,
Training some wild possums. I like to think that each member of the family has a specialty, and the things that are present and featured in the park are just because somebody knows how to do that.
I like to throw another idea out. Maybe this started as a Knott's Berry Farm situation. This was a possum
Oh.
farm where they would raise possums, and it grew into the sensation of Lester's Possum Park that we know of today.
That it's like there was a possum park and then some P.T.
Possum
Barnum
Farm. There was a possum farm, and
Possum
then people
farm,
kept
and
people would
then there
pull
was
over and
some
have to use the restroom.
right, and then there was some P.T. Barnum guy or like the McDonald's guy, from
The
them,
Ray Kroc.
yeah, who was just like, oh, there's big money to be had here.
There was so that is an option. We've covered everything except, ironically, one of my notes from the very beginning, and that is the main entry into Lester's Possum Park, where you enter through the giant possum head, right through the mouth,
Yep,
right past razor sharp teeth that are in
yep.
no way curved off, thus making Lester's Possum Park a survival of the fittest. Um,
I would love an I survived Lester's Possum Park shirt.
there's so much merchandise, which it does have the single best piece of merchandise I think I've ever seen in a fictional theme park, and that is that Lester's dead possum coonskin cap. That thing, if they sold those in the park, I would, again, instant buy. Like every time I see like people make them and they wear them to D23, I'm
Mm-hmm.
super jealous. I want a dead possum on my head.
No, it's so funny, and you have to ask, is that the remains of the possum farm?
Are they real possums?
Are they the original possums that have now, it's no longer a possum farm because now we have fictionalized these possums. And so the only thing that's left are the meet and greet possums. And when they run their course, they turn
They
into
become the
merchandise.
merchandise. Oh man.
So okay, I do have one question about the main entrance. Is
Yes. Yep. Yep.
it
Yep.
seems like it's free, right?
That actually, yes. Okay. So this is actually a fantastic segue into a segment that I hope becomes a regular thing here on Unreal Attractions. And that is what I'm calling guest feedback. So if you ever have a question or a comment, something you want to contribute to the conversation, comment on on any of our socials. I go through them, I'll comb them. But this one comes from Austin Baker, and I'll read his message. He says, my question would be, could such a place actually be profitable? It's free admission as Goofy and Max don't pay for tickets after they arrive. And it's clear that there's a lot of work that needs to be done on the animatronics, which are made out of literal wood and nails and keep breaking down, as are the photo ops. Yet they apparently shoveled all of their money into a lifelike possum suit for their mascot. And their merch game is sorely lacking, which you and I have already discussed. I mean,
Yes.
come on, only one article of clothing in a single style. Not to mention lawsuits must be rampant, considering they let people take unsupervised pictures with live possums, and the employees don't ask for consent before hugging the guests. So
A
again,
good thorough question.
I will say, I mean, I think we've already tackled a lot of this. A lot being the merchandise alone
Yeah.
would be selling. Now, also, then again, this is in 1995, and so I don't know if the hipster ironic vibe would have hit it
Mm,
like it would today. But like
sure.
nowadays, I think stuff like that would be like, oh, look at this retro shirt from a roadside thing. But yeah, is it free? We never see them pay admission. I mean, we don't think that the possum head leads directly into the theater because we actually see other
No.
things there.
Yeah.
So there could be an admission. As we mentioned, there is food, so you get revenue from there. There's a long line to get your picture with those possums,
And
and
yeah, maybe it's one of those things where it's like admission is free, but every single other thing in the park is paid for.
that's true. Like you have to get your ticket to go see the Possum Posse Jamboree,
Right,
and
like
and
you
according
can
to the
go
song,
for free, but you can't see the show. You can't take up the picture at the meet and greet. You can't get the food unless you buy
Mhm.
the proper tickets. So maybe it's draws an audience with the lure of being free, and then once you're there, you're not gonna not pay to see the jamboree. That's why you're
Yeah,
there.
yeah, it's like, well, I still argue that this was started as a roadside bathroom stop. This is it. If anyone has ever driven from LA to Las Vegas, there's a place called Alien Beef Jerky, and it is the same vibe. Though bless their hearts, it looks like they were trying to expand and they built like this whole like dining area and stuff outside with a giant UFO, and then COVID hit. And so
Oh,
it literally sits there abandoned right after. But once you go inside there, you can buy alien beef jerky, alien soda, alien. It's like
I've
aliens are
heard
their
tell.
possums. Yeah. So, and then I don't think, I mean, looking at the clientele, I don't think they're lawyering up for any lawsuits. I don't know if they could
I would
afford
agree.
to. I think this is so backcountry. This is like any big city people will probably get pushed out of this.
Yeah, is there the back in my day, we didn't have security for our parks.
Back in the day, man. But yeah, I do think that they need to improve on their merch. So Austin brings up fantastic points. A lot of which like it seems like everyone's on the same wavelength as far
Oh yeah.
as Lester's Possum Park goes.
Well,
Now, if you can add,
everybody seems to like it, which makes me I want to pose this question to you. How much would you pay to go to Lester's Possum Park, Kevin?
am I paying per attraction like you suggested, or is it a
Let's for simplicity's sake, let's say there's a one-time entrance fee that is all encompassing.
not knowing what I'm getting myself into? So if I'm just driving down the highway and I see that billboard, I pull over, and you know what? We need to stretch our legs. We need to get out. I don't know, 20, $30. Nothing
That's where
too
I was
crazy.
too.
Yeah.
And
For,
let's be clear, for the amount of attractions offered,
there's at least
that
two.
seems that seems fine.
Yeah.
For a show and a round ride and a meet and greet, and then obviously food and merch would be extra.
And parking is free.
And parking is free. That sounds
So
like a pretty typical roadside attraction. It's expensive, just shy of highway robbery. That's how they survive.
there were a total of 10 people watching that Possum Posse Jamboree show. So if that's the case, you're looking at anywhere from $200 to $300 just sitting in that theater.
And that's per
I'm assuming
show.
their land is paid off.
Right. And let's be clear, if the show is indeed one song, if that's a few $100s per show and the show is 2 minutes long,
Yeah. And
you're
let's
raking
be
in the
clear,
dough.
this is a cash only park.
Absolutely. I
Their taxes are
I don't want to know their thoughts about the pandemic. I don't want to know their
they never
reaction
closed.
to the pandemic.
They stayed open.
I am sure they did.
So any last thoughts? Okay. So this was our first trip out into the world of TV attractions and our attractions from the film and TV. So it was awesome catching up with you and exploring this gem
Oh,
of an icon.
likewise. There,
I want to,
there's something to be said for talking about something specific, and this is about as specific as you can get.
and
So
we've been
this
going
is
for
a joy.
45 minutes. This has been 45 minutes of us talking about a 5-minute segment of an 82-minute film from 1995. So eventually,
And
when
I'm
this podcast
thrilled.
gets to Jurassic Park, that's going to be like a whole season.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, just you wait. I think the next thing we should talk about is the like 10-second clip of Goofy and Max on their road trip in the montage and just
I
break down that theme park.
That would be, you know what? We'll get that on the books. We'll do a follow-up episode to this
Great.
for sure. Anytime I can get you on the horn. I want to give you now, you have the stage. Go ahead and plug where people can find you and what you're up to and tell everybody
Absolutely.
about your amazing Billy Joel Disney mashup that you did a while back, because that
Oh
was
yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah. You're referring to my magnum opus, full-length music video, We Didn't Spark the Magic. You can find it on YouTube. It's the full history of the Disney park set to Billy Joel's We Didn't Start the Fire in chronological order, filmed inside of Disneyland. You can find me at all social medias, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, at Noah Sunday-Lefkowitz. That's my full name, no spaces. Lefkowitz is Lefkowitz. I am working on putting on some live shows. I just did my first one in September to a sold-out crowd in Anaheim, and I'm going to be doing another one in Orlando, so watch out for that in February, and then hopefully some more in the LA area in the spring. And I'm perpetually working on medleys and music and original songs in the style of the Sherman Brothers or George Wilkins or Alan Menken. So if you like very specific Disney stuff, and I know you do because you've listened this far, then check out my social, and you'll enjoy the very obscure Disney music that I showcase.
Amazing. And again, I'm Kevin Lively. You can check out my professional work, kevinlively.com. It's a quick little portfolio of the stuff at least I can show you that isn't barred by NDA, which is always a fun thing in this industry. Also be able to check out the Imagine What Box at imaginewhatbox.com. And special promo, if you use the promo code Unreel, that's UNREEL, you get a discount off your first month subscription. So it is a world-building subscription box for creatives of all ages. You can also find me elsewhere at Livelyland across all the social medias. Thank you for joining us for the very first episode of Unreel Attractions, and we'll be back. Feel free to follow us along, submit your requests for whatever parks or attractions you want to see us cover, or anybody you'd like to see on the show. We'll get a lot of requests for Noah's comeback, I'm sure. But yeah,
Too
thanks
kind.
well, I just got to butter you up. But yeah, Noah, awesome. Thank you for hanging out with us. Everyone else, you have a magical day.